There once lived a girl named Ilara in the great kingdom of Silverhaven. She could not speak, she could not sing, but she played a simple wooden flute in the city streets. Ilara had no family, no home. She slept in doorways and ate scraps from the market. Every day she sat on the cold stone steps and played her flute. The music was soft and gentle. But the people hated it. They covered their ears and shouted at her. "Be quiet!" they yelled. "Your music is irritating. Go somewhere else." Children threw stones at her. Merchants poured water on her to chase her away. The city's proud musicians were the cruelest of all. They mocked her and broke her collection cup. "You shame real musicians," they sneered. "You have no talent. You are nothing." Ilara never fought back. She only lowered her head and moved to another corner. She had nowhere else to go. What no one knew was this. Every night when the streets were empty and dark, Ilara walked to the house of the dying. It was a place where the sick came when no doctor could help them. The pain was so great that many could not sleep. They cried and suffered through the long nights. But when Ilara came and played her flute softly beside their beds, something miraculous happened. The pain faded. Their faces relaxed. They breathed calmly and fell into peaceful sleep. Some even smiled before they passed. The nurses there knew her secret. "Please come tonight," they whispered when they saw her. "The woman in the corner room cannot rest." And Ilara would sit through the night and play until the woman finally found peace. But in the morning when she returned to the streets, the cruelty continued. People kicked her, they cursed her, they told the guards to drag her out of the city. No one guessed that the same girl they spat on was the one who brought comfort to their dying relatives. One evening, after a particularly harsh day, Ilara sat alone in the rain. Her hands were bruised, her clothes were torn. She thought to herself, "Why do I stay here? Why do I keep playing when everyone hates me?" But she had nowhere else to go, so she stayed. Then disaster struck. A terrible plague swept through the kingdom. It came without warning. Hundreds fell sick. Fever burned through their bodies. The pain was unbearable. People screamed in agony day and night. Even the queen herself became ill. She lay in her bed, trembling with fever, crying out in pain. The king summoned every healer, every physician, every wise person in the land. They gave her medicines, they performed rituals, they prayed. Nothing worked. The queen's suffering only grew worse. The king sat beside her bed, holding her hand, helpless and heartbroken. Then an old nurse from the house of the dying came to the palace gates. "Your Majesty," she said to the guards, "I know someone who might help. There is a mute girl who plays a flute. I have seen her ease the suffering of the dying. Perhaps she can bring peace to the queen." The king was desperate. "Bring her to me immediately," he commanded. The guards searched the city and found Ilara huddled under a bridge, weakly shivering and weak. They brought her to the palace. She stood in the grand throne room, dirty and trembling, clutching her simple wooden flute. "Play for the queen," the king said, his voice breaking. "Please." Ilara was taken to the queen's chamber. The queen lay there, her face twisted in pain, barely breathing. Ilara sat beside the bed and lifted the flute to her lips. She played the same gentle melody she had played 1,000 times before in the darkness of the house of the dying. As the notes filled the room, the queen's suffering began to ease. Her breathing steadied. The lines of pain on her face softened. Slowly, her eyes opened. She looked at Ilara with tears streaming down her cheeks. "Who are you?" the queen whispered. An elderly woman who had been standing in the corner suddenly gasped. She was the former royal nursemaid, now too old to work but kept in the palace out of respect. Her face went pale. She stared at Ilara, then at the wooden flute. "That flute," she said, her voice shaking. "I carved the royal seal into that flute 18 years ago." The king turned sharply. "What are you saying?" The old woman stepped closer, her hands trembling. 18 years ago, the princess was born. She was stolen from her cradle by enemies of the throne. We searched for years but never found her. We thought she was dead. She pointed at Ilara. That flute was placed in the princess's cradle the night she was born. It was a gift from the king. Look at her left wrist. The king rushed forward and gently took Ilara's hand. There, on her wrist, was a small birthmark in the shape of a crescent moon, the same mark the princess had been born with. The room fell completely silent. The queen sat up, tears pouring down her face. "My daughter! My daughter!" The king wept. Ilara stood frozen, unable to speak, unable to understand what was happening. The truth spread through the palace, and then through the city like wildfire. The mute girl they had mocked, the beggar they had kicked and cursed, the street musician they had called worthless. She was the lost princess of Silverhaven. The people who had tormented her gathered outside the palace gates, their faces filled with shame. The musicians who had broken her cup, the merchants who had chased her away, the children who had thrown stones. They all stood in horrified silence, realizing what they had done. The king wanted to punish them. He ordered the guards to arrest those who had hurt her, but Ilara stepped forward. She could not speak, but she shook her head. She looked at her father, and in her eyes was forgiveness. The king understood. He lowered his hand and said to the crowd, "My daughter, who suffered more than any of you will ever know, has chosen to forgive you. Learn from her mercy." From that day forward, Ilara lived in the palace as the princess she had always been. The people wept for their cruelty, but she forgave them all. She continued to visit the house of the dying, playing her flute for those in pain, bringing comfort to the suffering. And the kingdom learned a truth they would never forget. Be kind to everyone you meet. You never know who they truly are, or what battles they face. Kindness costs nothing, but its value is beyond measure. And the greatest treasure in any kingdom is not gold or power, but a kind heart that serves others without asking for anything in return.